Okay, well, it is 11:01 and this is Kay White here representing We Are the City. We are virtual at the moment, and welcome to your webinar, Craft Smart Emails, 7 proven steps to get your emails opened, read and responded to. So I am sitting here in my home office, as I'm sure you are in your version of that. And I know that there's been a really brilliant response. There's been a brilliant response to this, this webinar, which is as appropriate now as ever. But what's interesting is what I'm going to share with you will apply whether we are under working from home instructions or not. How you get your emails opened and read, and whether people open and read them. There's a style. There are things to say and things not to say. There's a way of putting yourself across, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. So I have my slide deck. Forgive me if I sneeze or splutter a bit. I'm a bit hay fevery. There's a lot of tree pollen around, but it's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to do this for We Are the City, who I support wholeheartedly, and Vanessa, who I'm very fond of, and I would consider a friend and a colleague. So let's get going and craft smart emails. My slides have got a bit weird in places, but I'm going with good enough, ladies, because ultimately these days, particularly, we go with technology as it is. So some of the slides have got my picture on and some of them haven't. So, but the point is the content of what I'm going to share with you is going to help you. As soon as you come off this webinar, you can literally start applying these things. I have water to keep me hydrated, which I'm sure you do too. And I have a clock to keep an eye on in case the trapdoor goes and I overrun. So I will also take questions. There's a Q&A button. And if you put any questions or comments that you have in as you think of them, I will come back to the Q&A towards the end of the webinar together to make sure that I can address that for you. So we know why it's important, and now particularly because we are constantly in touch with each other on email, voicemail, texting, instant messaging. But email still tends to be the weapon of choice, if you will, for getting your point across, for sharing information. And emailing has become a kind of mixed blessing in that you can email someone at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then press send and you go to sleep, but of course, you know, the next morning there it is and you're not there. And the thing about an email is you are actually sending yourself. You are sending something that says something about yourself. And it's important now because there isn't time, and certainly I've heard from clients that their patience is a little frayed. So the idea of being as clear as you can, as quickly as you can, and helping other people to help you with what you want to say or what response you want is critical, now so more than ever. Let me just move a few obstacles I have. So just to share with you briefly, I believe this is absolutely true. The road to success is always under construction. And that was Lily Tomlin who said that too. It's a famous actor. And it's such a good phrase. And most people will think that other people's line to success, wherever they are today, you might think that about me, whatever you're thinking, it has been a straight line. And it's all right, it's all easy for her, and it's all easy for him. You know, he seems to have got it all down. But actually, in reality, most people have had a journey and are having a journey like that squiggly line. Twists and turns and roundabouts where you don't know where to get off, you know, being in the hard shoulder and stuck and in the fast lane sometimes. It truly is, and I know it's a hackneyed phrase, a journey. And my point of sharing that with you is to remind you that we are in this holding pattern at the moment with what's going on in the world. But at the same time, where you are potentially going to take your career will be absolutely a twisting, turning journey. You'll think it's you on your own a lot of the time, but it isn't. And I think that actually helps us all to remember that, you know, we're all learning. And I truly believe a learning machine is an earning machine. Because the more you learn and the more you take in and the more you apply it, because obviously it's only information until you apply it, the better your repertoire and your toolkit of ways to deal with situations will be. So just very briefly, I started my career, I started my career as a very bright-eyed secretary in insurance at 18, so a fair few years ago. And I started as a secretary, and I worked my way up as a divisional director to become a divisional director in a big global insurance broking house. And I worked for Willis virtually from 18 until I was 38. And I learned so much about how to communicate and how not to communicate from some inspiring, but also some really heavy-handed, very masculine, roughy-tufty environment that I worked in. But all through my career, graduating, as I say, from the secretarial side onto the broking side, and I actually started to broke global property and casualty contracts all around the world, traveling, working in Paris. So my career was very twisty-turny, periods of the fast lane, periods being really stuck, sitting at my desk at 8 o'clock on a Friday night thinking, what am I doing here? I need to go home, I need a social life. So I had all sorts of pulls on my time and energy and focus. But one of the things I was always really good at, and this is what I want to say to you, there'll be something that's a standout for you. I was always really good at connecting with people, joining the dots between what they wanted and what I wanted, and being able to come to some sort of landing, an agreement, negotiate. And as a broker, that's what you're always doing, thinking on your feet and looking for where an angle might be. And a lot of that is in writing. So I learned to put myself across both in a compelling way, but also in a litigious way, because you have to put insurance, obviously, information together. It's absolutely binding. So I learned how to, and I didn't realize this at the time, but I was really learning how to put myself across in a compelling, honest, and brief, if you like, when I needed to be, way. Also through my career, I want to share with you, I'm pretty good at learning how, I also learned how to ask for what I want, so that the other person wants to say yes as well, which is a persuasion way of thinking. It's always like, what can I do to help you to help me? This way of thinking, more so than how can I get you to say yes, which is completely different. I invested in myself. I took myself off and learned how to speak French. Then the company put me on a fast track to go to work in Paris, but I took the initiative by investing in myself and learning French by myself and going on a French course down in the south of France. I also took lots of leaps of faith. I moved around within the organization. I worked, as I say, in Paris. I went to go and work out in the Bahamas and did lots of different things along the way that got me to where I am today. And rather than a big CV of any form, I left insurance broking in 2002, knowing that if I didn't leave and manage my own performance, I would have my performance managed, because I had got myself stuck. I was in one of those kind of holding patterns we talked about. So over a period of time, I found my way to actually doing what I now do, which is I show career women, just like you, how to step into the power that you already have, so you naturally attract promotion, recognition, and rewards. And you know that before even all of this was happening, it's never been a better time to be a woman, stepping up and stepping out. And so now more so than ever, we need to be more visible. We need to be visible for the right reasons. And we also need to make sure that everyone remembers that we are keen and that we are ready to take that step or take that opportunity. And your emailing style will most definitely help you with that. So let me just take a sip of water. This, by the way, is a magical thing to have on Zoom calls, because you don't spill it. If you knock it over, it doesn't go everywhere and you don't end up shouting at the screen. So let's get into a little bit about, well, sharing what I know. I'm very honored that Vanessa, the founder and MD of We Are the City, she gave me a testimonial for my most recent book, It's Always Your Move. It's Always Your Move is all about how to move your way through your career. It's a never-ending cycle. And Vanessa said that, as you say, I wish Kay and her books were around at the start of my career. I wish some of what I knew was around at the start of my career too. My first book is called The A to Z of Being Understood, and every part, A, B, C, stands for a tip that you can use straight away. So I haven't just thrown spaghetti at the wall over the years. I've run mentorships for women, for career women. I've hosted 3-day live events. I go into organizations and show them how to retain and promote women within the organization, encouraging an environment that women thrive in. So I work both in the private sector with women one-to-one and in groups, but privately, and also in the corporate sector. So it has been a twisty-turny journey, ladies, and it still is. But I want to encourage you. I will show you a way that you can have a chapter of It's Always Your Move at the end of the presentation, because the chapter I want to share with you is about interviewing and appraisals. And at the moment, you're still having one-to-ones, you're still having appraisals, women are still having interviews, clients of mine are still having interviews, because it hasn't all stopped, it's just changed shape. So if you are interested in having the principle from my book, Shine in Interviews and Appraisals, then that will be for you towards the end of the webinar. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes, as the phrase goes. 7 proven steps to get your emails opened, read, and responded to. Let's be honest, that's if you want a response and you're staring at your screen waiting, this is one of the things I want to share with you that works. So first of all, how would you describe your email style? Some people gush and give you all of the details and lots of information, and the thing is, and what you have to understand is, and literally have a kind of download as they're emailing, and you look at this screen of text and think, now where do I start? You could be like that, a dart that goes straight to the bullseye. Are you very brief? Do you do one-liners? Or maybe you kind of, as a lot of women do particularly, don't really know exactly what they're going to say, but they start off and they kind of meander their way through what it is they want to say, and then hope that they get to the point at the end. Now, of course, there's a lot of in-betweens, a combination of those things. And what I want to share with you is a principle to follow that spells out something handy that you'll remember, that can help you avoid being too much of any of those things. Too much for gusher, too much of a sort of maze thinking it as you go through it, or too much of a kind of too to the point, because too to the point can turn people off. So this is the thing I said to you, you are sending yourself, to remind yourself that you are sending yourself. I do need to keep my clock a bit closer to me so I can keep an eye on the time, ladies, so forgive me, there we go. So to remember you're sending yourself, it says something about you, and you have to always think, what do I want this to say about me? When I press send on this, not every email, because not every email is as important as others, but what do I want this email to say about me and my style and what I've thought about and how I've thought about the person? So here's a handy mnemonic for you, and that word is always a bit but a handy mnemonic. The word respond, if you just jot down the word respond down the side of a piece of paper, R-E-S-P-O-N-D, and those 7 steps spell out the word respond. So you can have a little post-it note on your keyboard or by the side of your table or whatever it is that just says these 7 words that will help prompt you to take on some of what I'm going to share with you, to make your emails more compelling, to make your emails more respondable to, and to also send yourself in a more, well, what's the word going to be? More in a way that really reflects how and who you want to come across as. Now, the first, I couldn't think of a better word than riveting, but the first word, the R, is for a riveting or a compelling title. Think of a title. Now, not for every email. I appreciate that you have to say ABC project, but sometimes, you have to call an email what it is, but sometimes you don't. More often than not, you don't. So here's some examples. ABC update, let's say it's project ABC, could be ABC, a quick heads up. Everyone loves a quick heads up. It's like, oh, what's that about? ABC meeting, blah. That could be ABC lessons and developments. You've been to a meeting on ABC and you've got some lessons and developments. That person's going to want to know what they are, much more so than ABC meeting. I saw this and thought of you. Now, one of the things I've learned from webinars, ladies, that these slides will come to you, but if there's something that really stands out for you, take a quick photo of it with your phone, because I've done this and I've been able to apply it straight away. Saw this and thought of you. Quick thought name. So if I was to email Vanessa, quick thought Vanessa, just heard this Vanessa. Now that is going to be more compelling than news about the virus, which at the moment everyone's full on. So saw this and thought of you. Quick thought name, that person. Everyone loves a quick thought. Quick question is another great one. If someone asks you a quick question, you're normally prepared to answer it. If they want a chapter and verse, they won't. Just heard. Everyone loves information when it's fresh and when they've just heard something. So if you've said just heard this as your title, I can virtually guarantee you that will be opened. Brief and brilliant idea. If you have a brilliant idea or you have a brief idea and you can express it briefly, pop it in the title rather than ABC project developments. Again, people zone out, we all do. So to actually, ABC, you still call it the subject, ABC project, a brief and brilliant idea, or brief and brilliant idea brackets ABC project. I encourage you to have a riveting and compelling title more than perhaps you do already, because it hooks people's attention. And when you've had your attention hooked, you're more likely to open it. And then when you open it, if you do the next few things, you're going to have a much easier response. So let's move through to the E. The E is an easy opener. And I don't mean to say, hello there, Kay, I hope the weather's fine for you and that you're enjoying lockdown. I don't mean a great big easy opener. I mean a few words. Hey, John, morning, everyone. Quick note for you, John. And I have put I 9 for a reason. I'm going to tell you that in a second. But just with your easy opener, just hey, John, or morning, John, or quick note for you, John. Because so often I will receive an email and it's just bam. And I know that person isn't trying to be rude or clever, but it doesn't warm me. It doesn't make me feel engaged or connected to them. An email I once received from a client, which was very useful because I was able to go back and tell her exactly what I was seeing. She wrote to me in 9 paragraphs, and every single paragraph started with I this, I that, I the other, I also do this, I never do that, I want to. And you look at it and you scan it, as we all do, and you just think, oh, it's all about you. It's not about anything about what I'm thinking. So you have to be really careful to balance if you scan your email, excuse me, I'm going to cough. If you scan your email and you see loads of I's, try and flip them to we's, ours, your, because that's more interesting to the other person. They don't care about what you think as much as what they think. And this, I think, really helps us be more compelling to the other person. The S is for space and layout. I can't tell you, when you see a big screen of text and you just look at it and think, oh, okay, I better print this off, which obviously you don't really want to have to, because I cannot stare at this screen all this time. So space and layout, what I mean by that, because obviously if you've got quite a lot to say, help the other person read it. And that's my steer, help the other person read it. Bullets, boldening certain words, shorten paragraphs. If you've got one paragraph that's over 4 lines long, I suggest you put a paragraph in. Excuse me, hay fever. So bullets, for example, you can, you go into, and so the following steps, bullets. And then I would bolden as well the first few words, or if there are a few bullet points, or you know that you've got a few bullet points, highlight the key words within that paragraph that help the other person to think, oh, that's a paragraph about this. Okay, there's that. And as they're scanning it, which, let's be honest, we all do, they'll know what you're trying to say and then go back for the detail. This is how we do read. So bullets are useful, boldening is useful, short paragraphs are useful, because we will zone out otherwise, or we might think, oh, I'll save that for later. can't face that at the moment. And that's not what you want when you've taken the time to put something together. Now, the P in respond is for the point, and it's so crucial. What's the point of what you're writing? What is the actual point of it? Why are you doing it? Why is it important? Now, you might think to yourself, okay, for heaven's sake, I have so many emails, I can't think this every time. But my point to you is make sure you understand what it is you're trying to convey so that you actually do convey it. And here's some quick questions you can ask yourself. Why am I sending this? What's the point of this email? What do they need to know versus what must I say? And in one sentence, what is this about? If I was to send a one sentence email, what would I say? The project's going off, we're over budget. If that's the one sentence, then everything builds from there. But I can't tell you, I've asked clients to tell me, well, what's the point of what you're trying to do here when we've been crafting something like this, or putting together a PowerPoint presentation or a paragraph in their CV, for example? What's the point? What do you want to say about that? Oh, well, I just wanted to say that, I've been doing all these things. And I said, yeah, and what do you want them to take away from that? That's the point. What is it you want them to take away from that? So I do encourage you to ask yourself, what's the point? What am I actually trying to do with this email in this moment? This is a good question to ask yourself. Is it one email, or should I send separate emails? And there's a reason to this. You could say to yourself, I don't want to fill people's inbox up with even more emails. Actually, though, sometimes it's really helpful to separate emails, because if you're asking a really big question of something within that email, and then you're asking a couple of smaller questions or some smaller input or help, people can forward emails on and then leave themselves with the meaty one to answer. So I will always think to myself, is it more helpful to send 2 or maybe 3 emails with different subject titles, different requests, and send them separately, or to do this big one? And I would often say it's the big one that is the one that gets blocked. So I will invariably separate them. So different subjects, different points to them, so separate them. Is it easier to respond if it's separate? And you can trim them and it's easier to read. You can quickly scan it. And I've tested this. I've asked clients, I've noticed myself, I've asked people, what do you do when you get one thing that's got too many requests in it? She will invariably say, I'll sit on it, because it's like, oh, I can't answer all that at the same time, versus the short bits. So you can separate it out and think, okay, there's one big thing I know that they need to think about, but there's some other things. Can you do this? Can you, could you please let me know about that? Could you pass this on to so-and-so? So you can ask these things separately, and it's actually really helpful, because you're going to get a response more quickly and easily to certain parts, and then the meatier part might take a little longer, and that's okay. So how are we doing for time? We're doing okay. So riveting, compelling title, thinking about yourself, asking, separating it out a little bit, thinking, I saw this and thought of you, quick question, quick heads up, a lesson in development around a subject, but something that's actually going to grab them by the eyeballs, as someone once said to me. An easy opener, something just light. Morning, John. Hey, John. They're all called John in my world, but hey. Nice, good to see you yesterday, John, or see you on the Zoom meeting later, John. And can I just, I just want to ask you this. So this is an easy opener, much more so than how much time have we got before X, Y, Z. I would never send an email that says that, ever. I would always say, let's use Vanessa. Hey, Vanessa, can you let me know how much time we have remaining on this? But I'd say, hey, first. It's just, you don't open someone's door in their office, if you're in the office, and just go, how much time have we got left? You just say, hey, John, how much time have we got left on so-and-so? It's the same principle. You come up on their screen and it's like a big sort of shout. And I don't think it does you service in the same way as just a small, little, easy opener. Space and layout, we've talked about the point, making sure you're clear about your point. Is it one email, or is it more emails? Is it more useful for you to have more emails? Excuse me. and yes, and making them easier to read. So the N is for now what? I can't tell you, now what? What do you want to have happen as a result of it? What do you want me to do? I'm the reader. What do you want me to do? What action, what response do you want? Help me by summarizing at the end. It's so useful to just say, okay, well, thanks very much for your thoughts on this, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you can let me know by 5 o'clock on Friday, because on Monday at 10, we're submitting this to the board. That's really compelling, because it's like, oh God, I better get this to her. What action or response do you want? And if you summarize it at the end. So, you know, again, if it's a 2-liner, it's not necessary, but if it's much more than a 2-liner, certainly a 2-paragraph. So thanks in advance for your time. I will also say thank you in advance for your time. And if you can, I look forward to reading that. And if you can let me know, if you could phone me if you haven't got this, that would be helpful, so that I can go somewhere else to ask. You know, summarizing what it is you want at the end is really important, versus, as so many people do, assuming that you're going to do it, I might not, and assuming that you know what it is you want me to do, because we don't always get it. And that's not necessarily a reflection of the reader, as it is a reflection of the person who's asked the question. Make it easy for us to say yes to you, to respond to you. So the D is for display information. Now, I know at work you often have your own sign-off that you put together that you have to keep, you know, succinct in the company style-y. And I can't tell you at the moment, I've seen a lot of emails that have gone by without that on. And I still think it's good to have your title. I still think it's good to have an easy way to phone you if you've got a direct number or a mobile number, rather than me scrambling around if I'm, you know, working with you, or I want to give you a quick call before a Zoom meeting. Make it easy for me, otherwise I might not bother. And so putting on your details and easy details, I always have my email address, and I often have my mobile number, because I want to make it easy for people to get in touch. Now let me just take a sip of water. And have I gone there? Direct, there we are. Excuse me. Because it speaks about you, like we've said, it speaks about you when you're not in the room. So the now what we talked about just now, literally, what do you want me to do next? What is it you want me to do? And the direct, the display information, make it easy for me to respond to you. So this is how it all comes together as respond. Easy opener, space and layout. Now I'm hoping if there are some questions, there are a few questions, I'm going to come to those at the end, because I want to make sure I've pulled together the content I've shared with you. I've got a few principles I want to share with you here. But that spells, and if you just, as I said, a post-it note, literally just like this, which has got my password to our webinar. If you just literally have a post-it note, I had one of those here for something else I wanted to remember, just literally plugged onto the keyboard of my Mac. And it just reminded me to do these things. Now, I really encourage you, if any of this or all of this has resonated with you, it's going to be easier for you to remember these little prompts if you have the mnemonic down the side, which is why I wanted it to fit in a mnemonic, and it handily did. So there are some overarching secrets, if you will, to how I would suggest you put yourself across. And I have built my business around communication and being able to negotiate and ask for what it is you want, essentially for women, because we have a certain style and we have a certain way that we like to do things. And so here are some behind the scenes for virtually everything I encourage women to do when they're presenting, when they're putting together a report, an appraisal, when they're hosting a panel, when they're, you know, all of these things I work with women to encourage them to step up and be more visible and also more valuable. So personalizing things, using other people's names, not all the time, not after every sentence, but personalizing things. Using a hook, like I said about the title, what's in it for me is the phrase, what's in it for them, it really is what you're thinking. But people will always think, what's in it for me? What does that mean to me? How does that affect me? How can that help me? So if you tell them, if you give them something that shows them that you understood that this will be useful for them, that's more compelling. Try and avoid corporate gobbledygook, and we have to use it, but if you do have to use it, try and translate it. And you can use a phrase like, by that I mean, or of course, when I'm saying X, I'm meaning Y. Because gobbledygook, oh, I can't even think of that. I see so much of it. Blue sky thinking is one of them. This is us getting together, putting our best thinking hats on. That's big sky thinking. But, translating it, you can do that very briefly, but scan your emails and thinking, if I was to show this to my 10-year-old niece who can read and who's, sensible, would she understand most of it? There is actually a app that you can screen your stuff through that rates it according to some sort of reading like that. Because people tune out, and this is the thing, it's not about you trying not to be, saying what the company says, but people tune out from it. We all do. So we want to make it easy for people to understand what we're trying to say and make it interesting for them. Being brief and to the point as much as you can be, but without being blunt, that's the key. Making it easy to respond. This is what I've shared with you before in the respond, but making it easy for people to respond to you. And what is it they need to hear versus what is it you want to say or have to say? And there is a difference. And this is how you flip, if you like, your attention. Doesn't mean to say you don't say what needs to be said, but you make it more interesting to them and you make it more compelling for them versus I have to say this and I have to tell you that, and what you need to understand is this. But of course, if I can tell you that, I need to tell you this. And I'm not saying that's you, but it can be, and it zones people out. So those are a few overarching bridges, if you will, to everything I share and how I work with women. If you would like to take Principle 5 from It's Always Your Move, it's a free chapter for you, all about interviews and appraisals. You can just take either a screenshot of that or a photo of it, kwhite.com/always-your-move. And I would be delighted to stay in touch with you very briefly. I send out every other week a little e-zine full of tips and tools and things like this to use. And also you'll get a free chapter that you'll get that chapter. And if you've got an appraisal or a one-to-one with your boss this afternoon, that will help you to prepare for it, helping you to think about what you need to think about, where to look for some of the nuggets that you want to share, how to come across as a very professional if you've got something that you're not happy about, all sorts of things are in that chapter for you. So the other thing to share with you, if you have heard me as I've been speaking thinking, oh my goodness, there's lots of things in there that would be useful, or I wonder what she'd tell me to do about this or what I could do about that. If you would like to, at this time when there is more time, I want to encourage, with my connection with Vanessa, I want to encourage anyone watching this, if you would like to take, say, 40 minutes of our time, yours and mine, to focus together, I'd like to offer you an Always Your Move action session. Some strategy together. I'm very open and honest, as you can probably tell. We'll look at if or how I can help you any further, but it's a very open discussion, and you will always come away with something. And how you apply for one of those sessions is there. So again, this is not an easy URL. I apologize for that. But there's a little survey, 5 key questions there. If you just fill out those questions, I will see them. I will be able to see if you're serious and if I think I can help you, because if you just want to have a chat with me, it's not as compelling as if you actually tell me, what is it you'd like to sit and have a coffee and discuss with me? Why is this important at the moment? What's going on? This will help you get clear. So that's at kwhite.survey.fm/AYM, Always Your Move action. So just take a screenshot of that. If not, there are a few questions there for you. And I wanted to offer this to you. I have 2 of these sessions this afternoon. I hosted a call recently on how to maximize meetings. And I can't tell you, some of the women are, do I go with redundancy, or do I get furloughed, and how do I negotiate this, and what do I do? I'm in doubt. Lots of conversations that are very topical for now, but also someone else saying, right, I'm using this time to pull my CV together. I want some help. Where do I start? So I'm very open to where we go. I just need to have a little bit of information in advance, hence the couple of questions there for you. So I'm going to bring this into land by saying it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. And we are in a time, my goodness, of change abound everywhere. And the more comfortable you are with pivoting and moving with the flow of what's happening, the more valuable you're going to be to your company, and the easier you'll find it for yourself. And I know it's easy to say, because I've had my own moments recently of, I can't do this, I don't know what I'm supposed to, how it like, but actually it doesn't help me. It takes far more energy than it does to think, okay, how am I going to make this work? Far more energy. So I'm going to put my glasses on, ladies, and have a quick look. We've got some questions, or a question here, 1 second. I'm not sure how I get to it. Hang on. Ah, thank you. Can you show the name of your book that you mentioned at the beginning? I joined a bit late. Oh, bless you. Well, my book is called, let me just move back here. My book is called It's Always Your Move. I'm going to fly through my slides so I get to the space I need to, ladies, because as you know, I'm making this up as I go along as well. My book is called It's Always Your Move, and I think you will have found that as well. If you want to take a free chapter to read, and you'll receive it later today, it's kwhite.com, always your move. One of the things I will say to you, just as if you have any more questions or any more comments, I'm obviously very open to those. One of the things I'll say to you is, when I received that email that had all of the I's in it, I asked my client, let's call her Sue, I asked my client to just read it as if she was someone else. And I said to her, what does it say to you? And she just said, I don't care about the reader, I care about me. And I'm coming across as grumpy and slightly stroppy, and I don't like it. So my point again is, when you take yourself out of yourself and what it is you have to say and what it is you want to say and what everyone else, should know about this, and they should have done, and you take yourself out and you think, how are they going to receive this? It's always about how are they going to receive it? And it's so different from what I have to say. How are you going to receive this? Sometimes you will have heard, type out the email that you want to send and then delete it. And then type out the email that you know is the better email to send. Leave it overnight. I wanted to send an email yesterday, and I thought, I know this is going to be better when I've read it again tomorrow. So I got it all ready, put it into my draft box, and then read through it again this morning. And I have now sent it, but I needed to sort of just absorb it. I know you haven't always got the benefit of time to do that, but you can still think about it. If you switch places and you're the receiver, how is this email going to come across? What is it going to say about me? What impression do I want to leave with the reader? And this is just as important for those quick updates as it is for something quite, that needs to be in writing. Now, the other thing about emails, ladies, as a kind of bonus bit at the end here, is often you don't need to send an email, but I would often say you do. And what I mean by that is, you've just had a conversation with your boss. And I can't tell you how many times this has happened. You've just had a conversation with your boss or a colleague, and you've agreed to something, and they've said, yes, of course, you can go ahead and do that, or we can make that happen for you. And off you all go, and everyone's happy, and then it doesn't happen. Or then when it does happen, it's not what you said. And what I recommend, and this happened to a client of mine who actually works at the Met, and that's interesting in itself, the Metropolitan Police. And she said, I should have put it in writing. And I said, yeah, we both know that, but yes, you should have. She came out of a meeting, she was told that this would be her path next, this would be a bonus, this would be an opportunity. Great, yes, you know, looking forward to it and everything. And what I would have recommended, what I would recommend is, hey John, let's call him John again. Hey John, great meeting with you. Thank you so much for your time. So you're opening up. Thank you so much for your time. It was really useful. I'm very excited at the things that we've agreed. I shall look forward to hearing from you about X, and thank you for saying that I can take part in Y. And I'm also very honored to have been chosen to, you know, receive 20,000 as a bonus. Let's say if that's what was said, it's a very easy way to pop it into writing. That's an audit trail. That's a moment. And I can't tell you as well, ladies, how many times I've had women come back to me and say, oh, he didn't like it when I put it in writing. And I said, no, I know, that's all right. But you've just done it in a very helpful way. But you haven't said just for the record, which is defensive and combative. You've just said, thank you again for your time. It was really helpful. I appreciate all, you know, that we discussed, and just for, you know, for both our memories, or for both our sakes, you know, blah, 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 blah. And you put out the key points in there, but you spread them out a bit. You know, you've agreed to do this would sound much more compelling and more less defensive if you said, I appreciate your offer for me to do X. I'm thrilled to say yes, and I look forward to taking the next step. You've taken 3 sentences to say it, but it's far more effective than if you just defensively write out what you think is going to happen. So email is a tool for you to use for yourself, clearly, to shore up what you've said. It's the same if you've just had an interview with one of your colleagues. It's been a bit sensitive. Following up would be just, you know, just a quick follow-up, so that we've both got a memory of exactly what our next steps are. Not saying so you've got memory of what you said, which is, again, defensive. Memories of what our next steps are. And that, again, is very light, but also in writing way, on the day that you did it, not 3 weeks later, on the day you did it, or, but worst case, if you will, the morning after, so you can still say yesterday. But you just do a quick follow-up. Again, this is as much for you as it is for the other person. So I have brought myself into land with a bit of time. I don't think we have any more questions. I haven't opened the chat because it can be very distracting, but it's really, I really encourage you to use these tools. They are tools, they're not tricks either. They're tools, they are a process. And I'm a very practical and tactical coach and mentor for women. And we tend to be far more open and far more trusting often than actually is good for our career, not for our personality. This is why I always say, I show women how to get promoted and paid more money and be more valued without losing themselves. So everything I've shared with you still keeps you whole and still keeps you in there. It's just actually about being tactical with your day-to-day energy and saving as much of energy and time as you can. So I am going to thank you for your time and attention. I brought you in early, which is always a bonus, as if you've got an 11:45, you can hop and have a quick hand wash or cup of tea or something. And I just want to share with you that tomorrow on this series of WeAreVirtual webinars, Aviva Wittenberg-Cox, she is hosting a webinar for We Are the City, Balancing Love, Work and Home, that is a big subject, in the age of pandemics, balancing love, work and home. And I, for one, will be tuning into that with you, ladies. So thank you for your time and your energy. I look forward to speaking with some of you who decided that you want to have a chat with me. The URL was back in the slides, and I will say have a great rest of your day. And what I often do on a call, as I'm just literally in time, I have this little book by the side of my desk. She believed she could, so she did. And I'm going to open it up for all of us, ladies, and tell you what is here. Oh, Madeleine Albright. It took me quite a long time to develop a voice. And now that I have it, I'm not going to be silent. I think that's a pretty good way to end us today. It took me quite a long time to develop a voice, and now that I have it, I am not going to be silent. Madeleine Albright. So ladies, until the next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.